Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to View with Mike G, the show of life, the show of Yellow Submarine, the show of Islay, but most importantly, the show of Bruichladdich. Today's guest is the great Allan Logan from Islay itself, talking about all things as the distillery manager for Bruichladdich. We sip and chat and talk about all the great marks coming out of that distillery, a little bit of the history and how a fortuitous soccer team led to a career in this distillery lifestyle. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed this great chat with Allan Logan of Bruichladdich.
Yeah, absolutely. When Adam and I often try and get out to the warehouses on a Friday, and we just love coming across these things that we forgot about.
Yeah,
it's
so
like
cool.
we go out and we'll spend some time just looking at how things are developing, and every now and again you come across something and tucked away in a corner that you've forgotten about or you haven't tried, and we've lots of different things. Just sometimes just little twists. I mean, sometimes some great cool experiments. We came across one there recently where we had malted a small batch of barley at the distillery. Now, we don't have the malting facility, and this was something that we just came up with.
A makeshift malt.
Yeah, makeshift. Yeah, we got a truck, and we basically put a liner inside the back of a truck.
Yeah.
And we put the barley in and we steeped it in the truck. And then after steeping it, then we cut some holes and drained the water off. And then we took it to this big farm where there was our barley store. We germinated it on the floor by hand. Yeah. We done that just to make a batch, just to see if we could do it. And, we then distilled it, we put it into barrels, and it was all current at the time. We distilled it, and then after time we've got involved with other things, and then just recently we were like, we forgot we'd done that.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so that was in like 2010. So it's now 8 years old, and we're like, let's go back and look at this, and it's pretty cool. It's really got that Islay farmy stamp on it, which is pretty cool. So I mean, exploring with everything all the time. We've got the freedom to do so. Last year we were lucky enough to, well, it wasn't lucky enough, it was actually an idea that we had early on in the year. We're always looking to do things differently, and what can we do? And everything we do has got to have a sense of meaning to the place and the people, and it's not just something we just, we're doing it for no reason.
Yeah, do you use the word terroir there? Because
yeah,
it's kind of like that,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. It's all about provenance and terroir, really understanding the fundamentals. If we do, whatever we do, whether it's with barley, whether it's with fermentation, whether it's with barrels, it's got a sense of meaning to a place or a connection with our spirit. And, it's not just about, well, if we do this, this, and this, and then, kind of see what happens.
Sure.
And last year we were, I was speaking to a farmer, and we were talking about crop rotation, and because we grow barley on the island, we're now working with 19 farms on Islay, and there's not really a big market for the farmers to produce other cereals, so it's more difficult for them for crop rotation. So they can grow grass to graze cattle, and then they grow barley for us. But every now and again, because they've taken so much out of the soil, they've got to rotate their crops. And we were talking, and we were saying, what about growing some different cereals for us that we could use for distilling? So we've done an experiment. It's never been done on Islay before. We got some rye, and we grew rye on Islay.
Where did it originate from? That rye, Germany?
Well, no, the rye had we got the seed. It was a UK breeder that we got it through.
Oh, cool.
We took the seed in, and then we, as I said, we grew it on a cool farm, just 5 miles from the distillery. Just as an experiment, we only took 10 acres just to see how it would grow. And, it was a success. We grew it. We then managed to take the small batch of rye we got, and we done a few mashes. We only done 5 mashes off it December last year.
Yeah.
And then that gave us, the first Islay rye spirit that we've ever produced. And, it was pretty cool.
Is that...
Yeah.
Where is that? Is
So
it in
it's
a
sitting
bottle somewhere?
No, it's not bottled
Okay,
yet. No,
okay.
it's still sitting in the warehouses. It's only just, not even be a year old at this stage.
Oh, wow.
We've got it sitting. We filled some into virgin American oak, some into virgin French oak, and then we've put in some into first fill bourbon cask as
That's
well.
incredible.
And we're watching it go, just see how it turns out. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
To you, for flavor wise, because we're
Yeah.
I'll call it in the Western, the States, we're really used to a particular type of rye
Yeah.
flavor that's typically coming from.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because what we done, being open and transparent, because we've got nothing to hide about it, is that the rye, because the high beta glucose content in the rye, it's very difficult to do 100% mash bill.
Yeah,
So we
right.
cut it with Islay barley, malted barley, in the mash. So we put in 55% rye and 45%
Wow, okay.
malted barley. And it was interesting because when we were distilling, mashing was a bit of a challenge for us because we've got an old Victorian mash tun. It was never designed to do this. So
Rye is hard too, man.
So just to get the right consistency and the right mix and figure out, because it's not like just working with malted barley, which is actually very easy to work with.
Yeah.
It was very sticky, so it took us a long time to get the right temperatures. Anyway, when we what we fermented and then we distilled it, but the spirit was amazing because it's got obviously it's unusual for us to get that real spicy, licoricey note coming through in the spirit. So that was great for us just to have a different flavour from a different cereal. And obviously, watching it develop over the last kind of 8-9 months in the casks, it's really taken on that more spicy and taking more out of the wood. It's really becoming more pronounced.
But when you talk about ryes, it still to me seems like it's going to have this unique voice in that.
Sure.
Like it can't. There's no way it's going to taste like the stuff we have here, but still reminiscent with that spice.
Yeah, it's got that spicy licorice note, but not. It's got definitely has got the Bruichladdich stamp on it. It's got that
Good.
DNA on it, and that's pretty cool for us. So yeah, things like that gives us, we've got the freedom to do that. Nobody's telling us we can't do it.
Yeah. That's kind of nice, right?
Yeah, it was. We we had arranged it with the farmer. We grew it. It was like an 8-month project, and we kept it relatively low key because we knew if we started talking about it, because we were, as I said, everything we do has got a kind of sense of meaning to the place, and we want to do it right. So we're growing it ourselves, in the fields where we know it's come from in the soil, and so we kept it relatively low key because we knew if we had started talking about it early on, that we knew that everybody else would jump in the bandwagon and they would be doing it before us. So. And then when we distilled it, we were like, obviously it was hot news around the distillery, and Simon, the CEO, was like, "Oh, you never even told me you were doing this." He was like, and we're like, "Oh, we didn't know we had to."
By the way,
yeah, that's it.
I'm always,
he wasn't mad. He was just joking, saying, "I didn't even know you were doing this." So
I think that my whole philosophy is ask for forgiveness. But never beg for permission.
No, that's right. Yeah,
because these experiments sometimes they can be tragically terrible, but with the knowledge and the articulate nature of process that you guys have, there's no way it's gonna be bad.
No,
it's just gonna be different.
Yeah. We're very inquisitive of what flavors we'll get from different things, and particularly with malted barley, that's one thing that we think the industry's underestimating the influence of what barley gives to whiskey. It's it could be deemed as seen as a commodity to a lot of others, but for us it's more than it's the raw ingredient you use in making single malt. So it has got a lot more to give. Working with different varieties, even just understanding the locations of where the barley's coming from, the soil type, what that's giving, the weather impact that has year on year. So we have a lot of whiskey now that we've been making for well over a decade. We've been working directly with farms, and that project's been, started back in 2003 and 4, and it's now, we've got whiskey that we're bringing to the market, and it's we can really educate people on the influence of terroir, that what the barley's given to the grain, and sometimes it's very subtle, sometimes it's more pronounced. We get, particularly with Islay, you get that influence, that maritime note, that salty
salinity,
that salinity flavour that comes, and that's because we're growing barley so close to the Atlantic Ocean, and it's really got that salty, briny note that comes through. It's distinct with Islay barley, and we just love exploring, with new nuances. We take the Bere barley, which is the ancient strain of barley from Orkney that we grow. It's a 6-row variety. It's low in starch, so it reacts very differently through the fermentation. It's because it's got low sugar content. It produces a lovely cereal husky note, and then we're getting more influence from the yeast because there's less sugars for the yeast to consume.
Yeah, they're having to work a little bit harder, right?
So yeah, we get great flavors from that, and it's just all these things are for us. Is we're learning all the time. What we can gain from the grain, and that's for us is just it's incredible. Rather than just taking grain as a commodity and thinking it's all the same and just keep distilling it, and then for us, you're just you're then if you're doing that, you're solely reliant on the casks, for giving you flavor. Whereas we can get different flavors from the barley. We can tweak things in the distillery to get more flavor or adjust things. But then obviously we can work with the cask as well.
Yeah. And well, I mean, you've got every peat. It's one thing is, so I always found this interesting about cognac, right? It comes from highly acidic wine that is not drinkable.
Yeah.
But why would you want to drink something that's not drinkable at one stage? Now I know it works fine, and that's really the heavy influence of the cask. But see, this is a great thing, is that you're saying, well, no, the grain's got to be good. It's got to be distinct. The distillate has to be good, and also the cask. So you're this whole 360
that's it. Yeah. Well, I mean, in anything, if you want to make the best of anything, you've got to start right at source. You can't just pick it up halfway through and make
try to correct
things. And to understand, your ingredient. If you're a mixologist or if you're a chef, you want to understand the ingredients, what influence that's going to have, and what you're preparing. And the more you work with it, the more you understand it. And for us, that's where it goes right back to the source of the grain. And for us, that's why we care about it so much.
Yeah.
Barley is really, really important. And I think for now it's becoming more easy. It's becoming easier for us to explain that, because we have the liquid, we have the whiskey, it's matured, and we can let people try, and they can see the differences, taste the differences themselves. They can smell it, they can taste it. And for us, that's not mission accomplished, because we're always going to explore. We're going to keep exploring till we don't think we'll ever get to the stage of
explore until we expire.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, absolutely. And there's lots of exciting things that we can continue to do. We're looking at building our own small bespoke malting plant that we'll be able to then have more flexibility in
a series of trucks.
Yeah. Well, no, not so much in a truck. Actual proper
mobile malting. Though? There's something to that.
Yeah,
there could be.
Yeah. Well, we considered that before, like if you could do something that was, but no, we want to put in a small bespoke malting plant that gives us flexibility to make small batches and just play around with the different the grains we're doing. Whether it's rye in the future, we can make a peated rye.
Yeah.
All these kind of things.
Very cool.
Yeah. And that's for us. It's just exciting that we've got the ability to do that. So we're working on that at the moment, and it's I suppose it comes back to your original question. Are we creative? Well, yes, we are. But
I think you just demonstrated that you're wildly creative.
But it's in a way that we do it naturally, and it's got to have a kind of sense of meaning as well. That
it's never contrived.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
For you, this is the thing. So I love people, and the way that intersects with the way that they express themselves through spirits that they distill, I think is an amazing thing, a lovely thing. So you're really an articulate guy. You know this process, of course, 4th generation distiller, but when it comes to this communication thing and being able to command a room, did you go to school for that? In other words, what would you have been doing otherwise when you left uni? I think in '97.
Yeah.
What other path would you be on?
Yeah, no, it's not the case at all. So I grew up on Islay. I was born and raised on Islay. My father was working at Lefroy Distillery, so we lived right beside the distillery. And at an early age, I knew I wanted to get into the whiskey industry.
What was I didn't want to do what my dad did right when I was younger. But what was interesting about it for you?
Yeah, I think it was just because on the island, we're surrounded by distilleries. My grandfather, my uncles were all working in the whiskey industry. As I said, my love for the island as well. Growing up there, all my friends, my family were there.
Yeah.
I knew it was a good job, and I don't know. There's maybe something in my DNA that just wanted me to do it. And it was, I can see the point that most people say, like, I don't want to do what my father's doing, but I naturally did. And the challenge became when I got closer to leaving school that you can't really go off and study to get a career. Okay, you could go to, nowadays you can go to Heriot Watt and get a degree in brewing and distilling, but back then it wasn't an option. So to get into the industry, it was very difficult. And I remember asking the manager at Lefroy at the time, what advice would you give me? Like, what experience could I get, or how would I get into the industry? And he says, to be honest, it's really, to start off with, he says, to become a distiller, we're looking for somebody that's like mature and it's responsible. So he says, you really probably need to think about it maybe when you're 30, 35. That's probably the time to come back and try and get into the industry. And that was very off-putting to say the thing. But I didn't give up on my dream. But back in '97, there was a few distilleries. Like, there was Bruichladdich was obviously closed. Ardbeg was closed, but then I think in '98 it reopened, when Glenmorangie took over.
Yeah.
And I remember trying to obviously get a job at Ardbeg, but they'd taken back all the guys that had worked there before, so there wasn't really any vacancies.
How many people, like roughly, Islay, just talking about it, how many people actually live there? Not travel to work, but...
On Islay, there's the population is just over 3,100 people.
It?
Yeah, so it's insane. So it's very...
Jobs are difficult to come by.
Yeah, definitely. And back then, you've got to remember, there wasn't so many opportunities because the distilleries were running quite on a skeleton crew, because it was really, just distilling. A lot of the aging's done in the mainland and the bottling's done in the mainland. So therefore, they've just got maybe 4 or 5, maybe 10 guys working the distillery and a few people working in the visitor shop. And that was it. So the jobs didn't really come up that often. It was only really when somebody retired that then there'd be a new job came up, and then there'd probably be 50, 60 people maybe going for the same job. Yeah. So it was very difficult, and that's what my point was, that with no experience and how do you start off with, and so it was quite downgrading. So I went off and I wanted to leave school. My parents said, well, you can't leave without getting a job. So I started my career in the building industry just to take a trade, just to stay on the island. But it was quite difficult because work was, again, it's quite limited, building work on the island. I tried, as I said, in '98 when Ardbeg opened, but as I said, there was no vacancies. And then a couple of years later, in the year 2000, I was just about to, for the first time in my life, I was about to leave the island. I was actually thinking of, building work wasn't, there was nothing really happening.
Where to?
I was going to go to Glasgow.
Glasgow, okay.
And I contemplated it. I spoke to some of my friends, and they had a flat, and I was about to, kind of leave, and I thought, well, fresh start, 2001, I'm going to, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you're 21-ish, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So I'm going to take the plunge and move, and then, just as luck would have it, just at Christmas, December 2000, the year 2000, the news had kind of been announced that Bruichladdich was going to be reopened. Jim McEwen was going to be leaving Bere Distillery to go and work at Bruichladdich. And that was just like new news on the island at Christmas. So I was, kind of heard the news. My father says, you should go and speak to Jim. So I knew.
Did you know Jim already?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing was that Jim was he was our coach at soccer on a Saturday morning. So he used to teach us football.
Oh, that's
so
great.
I grew up. I knew him very well. And I was at school with his daughter as well. His daughter's the same age as me, so I had known him. So so I went to visit him on January and had a chat with him. Now, the interesting thing with Jim was that he had really had a vision, and he had a totally different outlook to the little Freud manager I spoke to in '96. Was that he was telling me that he had really wanted to employ like new blood into the whiskey industry and give young people the opportunity to learn a craft, to learn a skill. And he had knew, like, my family had all worked in the industry, so he knew my credentials from my family, and
it's in your blood.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so he was only too happy to give me a job. So that's really when it all begun in 2001 in January. Agreed to work with him, but it wasn't straight into distilling. We had 6 months of getting the distillery back on its feet, which was a great period because really got to know the ins and outs of the distillery because we were maintaining it and getting it up and running. And then when we did start distilling, I was became almost like an apprentice distiller and worked my way through, and just worked really hard and wanted to know every aspect of it. And well, here I am today still.
It's interesting, and this is lots of the stuff's available online in the bio and all of that. The soccer coach stuff isn't, which is rad. But I get it now. It makes sense why Bruichladdich feels the way it does.
Yeah, it
comes from youth. It comes from inquisition, thinking about things. And that's what changes the industry.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's what
we are a community. And we are a community-based company. We're Islay centric. We do everything we can to make an Islay single malt. An Islay single malt because we're employing local people. We do things more difficult than than probably there's ways around things that maybe we could take, but we choose to take the hard path because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
like we bottle our whiskey on Islay. Most other brands would, it's not feasible to do that because you've got to ship all the glass onto the island and then ship it back off.
Right.
It's as an extra cost. But for us, it's all about having the control of our whiskey from start to finish, from seeds right through to what whiskey we select goes into the bottle and it leaves the island. But also the added benefit is it's employing local people. It's giving young people like myself the opportunity.
Well, you're paying back. You're paying it forward.
Yeah, that's right. So now we're just over 100 strong in Bruichladdich.
That's crazy.
So from a distillery that started in 2001 that had no people, we're now over 100 people strong. We still do everything manually, so we need more more people. But we're also giving young people the opportunity to learn skills that not just in distilling, but in IT and customer services and HR and we've really Bruichladdich. I Love Islay is our headquarters. We don't have decentralized location warehouses and stuff. It's all done from Islay. It's done from the heart of the people from Islay, and that's for us that feels it's the way Islay whiskey should be made. Maturing all our whiskey on the island again, it adds an extra premium to our cost because we've got to build warehouses. We've got to ship the barrels to the island. But we wouldn't have it any other way because it's so important that our whiskey is made there, it matures there, and it's bottled there. And it's incredible for me being a distiller that, we're working with farms and we're, handling grain and, understanding the flavours and then, distilling it when we distill it, the new make that we create from that barley, the quality of that, and then we're selecting the barrels that goes into overseeing the maturation from start to finish, and then having the job of actually selecting that whiskey and putting it into a bottle. It's incredible. There's not. I don't think many people have that 360 view of the whole process.
No, you're absolutely right. That's the thing that and of course I'm taking pictures of you.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, it's okay.
I'm not distracted, so to speak. When it comes to the juice itself, and Scotch as a category being generational for you, being part of your blood, literally, probably, metaphorically, right? When was the first sip you can remember where you got it? It tasted good. Because, when we're younger, we don't always appreciate stuff. But was there a moment where you sat down with it and said, oh, now I get it?
Yeah.
This all makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's definitely happened. Well, my first ever whiskey I had I was probably 14 or 15, and I think it was maybe at New Year, I tasted my father's whiskey, Lafroig, and didn't go
that's
down.
one to start with.
That didn't go down too well, to say the least. And I can remember even thinking at the time, oh God, I'm never going to drink whiskey again.
Yeah.
And obviously my palate was young, and didn't obviously appreciate how to taste it. But then obviously as you mature, and I remember when we started at Bruichladdich, when in 2001, and this is what was quite interesting. This is when it started to change for me. Was that Jim, who's a very, very passionate and enthusiastic guy, and when we started in 2001, we were very fortunate that we had inherited some of the whiskey that had been made by the previous owners.
That's a very sexy story, yeah.
So there was about 8,000 or just under 8,000 barrels still sitting in the warehouses of different years. And Jim in 2001 was basically had the job of going through all that stock and understanding what he could make from that and bring to the market. And we used to, as I said, the first 5 months were pretty much getting the distillery back on its feet. And they used to, at the end of the day, we would stop and have a kind of chat about what we were doing. And we'd always share it with a dram or a beer. And obviously, I was just a young 21-year-old at the time, and he was sharing and teaching us how to to properly drink whiskey, and that's really when it kind of changed for me, drinking Bruichladdich whiskey, but in the right way, understanding how to taste it. And Bruichladdich is quite a light, easy drinking spirit whiskey to drink anyway, so that was a really turning point for me. It took me a while to develop a palate for heavily peated whiskey.
Yeah.
It probably came a few years after it, albeit we've been distilling Bruichladdich. Always felt that Bruichladdich was, even in the new make, was a bit intense. The smoke was a bit higher. It was just a bit stronger. But I could say, now Bruichladdich is my go-to whiskey. It's something that I love. I love Bruichladdich, I love Octomore, but probably if I had to choose between the three, I would probably select Bruichladdich all the time.
So learning how to drink whiskey is what changed your way of thinking about it, tasting it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Taking your time and appreciating it. Jim, as I said, his enthusiasm and his knowledge and, drinking it properly, because I think back when I was probably 14, 15, I just, took a sip and, just it burned and didn't enjoy that. But no, I think understanding how to drink it properly and appreciating the flavour and the taste. And, as I said, Bruichladdich is a great whiskey for starting off with as well, because it's so soft and elegant as well.
How long have you been in Texas this tour?
This has just been a week this time. So yeah, so I've been in Texas. I've just came down. I've been in Dallas and Houston and Austin for a few days.
This is the thing. It's funny. I like thinking about, which makes sense, but food to me is the precursor to identifying the notes in whiskeys, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've made it to Whataburger yet. This is a Texas thing. Great burgers, and it's like you got to do it. It's just it's our thing, It's Texas. Yeah. But they had this honey butter chicken biscuit.
Right. Wow.
So you got a little bit of salt, a little bit of fat, some honey, and the starchiness from the biscuit. When I drink the 10-year, this is the note that I get, is biscuits.
Yeah.
Which is very common actually, from what I understand. But the honey and the chicken, right? So you get This is one of those things. So I almost want to just take you there to taste it. Like, I kind of get how the Scotch tastes like this,
Sounds interesting, yeah.
But this is the great thing about the Scotch. Talking about the vault, when was Bruichladdich first shuttered? I know it reopened in 2001, you said, but when was it shuttered before that?
So a bit about the history of Bruichladdich. Obviously, it was founded in 1881.
1881.
And it was formed by a family, the Harvey family. There were three brothers. They'd been distilling in mainland Scotland, and they came to Islay in 1881 to build a single malt distillery. Now, I think the first time it actually closed was probably during the First World War. It shut and then it reopened. And really, I mean, right through the 1900s, the distillery had a kind of checkered past. And I think what had happened was because the demand of Scotch was getting higher, but the demand of Scotch wasn't for single malt as such, it was for blended Scotch.
Right.
And most of the distilleries in Scotland, if I'm not saying all, but most of them, including Bruichladdich, there was a proportion, and usually a high proportion of their distillate would be going for blends, so they'd be selling their single malt for blends. So they were reliant on the blended Scotch market. So every time there was a downturn or there was a war or something happened, and sales dropped, then the distilleries got into difficult times, and then they would usually, if they didn't have requirements for production, then they would close the distillery down, or sometimes it would be sold onto another brand, and then they would pick it back up. So really, I mean, I think in the history of Bruichladdich, I think it's been 6 times the distillery's closed.
Wow. Okay.
It's changed ownership several times. And I think the last time it closed was 1994, before we took over. But in 1994, it was owned by Jim Beam Brands, and they had closed it. There was a bit of the sales of blends had started to slow down. The distillery itself was old and inefficient. It's still the Victorian equipment. They didn't want to invest ahead and upgrade the equipment, which it's a sad thing that they closed the distillery in 1994. They shut the distillery and there was no production and the people were laid off. But we're super glad that they never actually did a good decision to upgrade it, because today we still work with the original equipment. We see that as our big USP, that we're still making whiskey the traditional way with the original equipment. Our mash tun goes back to 1881. It's incredible. We're like a working museum, but for us, it's we're very involved in the process. It's by hand, by touch, by feel. It's not just push a button and the spirit comes out the other end.
Again, I mean, that's the connective nature. The spirit should be that way. You're a composer.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, there's so much you can influence from being involved, and just even by touching, by feeling, by smelling.
Yeah. All
these things right across the process. So we see our guys, and this is something that's for us is appealing for young people to come in. They're learning a skill, a trade. They're coming in and they've got to learn, and it's something that you don't just pick up in 6 months or a year. You're still learning after 4 or 5 years. I mean, I'm still learning, because each day the challenges we get with grains and things with the distillery, we're learning all the time. So, and I think that's the interesting thing, is that we're connected with the process rather than it just being an automated process where it just, you push a button and, spirit comes out the other end. And
it's just, that doesn't feel good.
No, it doesn't. No, and it, sadly, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I think there's more skill being lost in Scotland because there's more automation coming into it. So do people still feel as connected to the making of the whiskey as they could? I don't know. I mean, I'd probably say no, but that's my view on it. Yeah. But for us, it's a great way of learning and being connected. And I think even our guys, the distillers back at the distillery, they have a great pride of what they because they're actually involved in the process and they understand the process.
Yeah.
As opposed to,
you feel to me as a spokesman for Islay, lived there your life. You've revitalized, with the help of many great people, a wonderful shuttered distillery, bringing these great things. You have any interest in the politics of it? Being a councilman, being a congressman, I'm not exactly sure what the positions would be called in Islay, but helping the community even further in that kind of way. Yeah,
I mean, that's, as I said earlier, our business, we're Islay-centric. We are at the heart of the community. We do as much as we can to support the community, whether it be the farming community. We do a lot with sponsoring local organisations and such. We do as much as we can. We care about it. We're the biggest employer on the island. And, I think, it's not to take out, I think all the other distilleries do their bit as well. Yeah. It's not because they're all run by local people and they're all very much involved in it. So, I think all the distilleries really do come together. We've got a great sense of community between all the other distilleries, albeit they're owned by different multinational companies. Sure. And that's obviously what happens out here in the global and the wider global content of things. But on Islay, we are all a community. We all get together. Just last week, for example, we held a 5-a-side soccer match between all the distilleries. So each distilleries put together some football teams, and we competed, but it was to raise money for charity for the old folks home. So, the distilleries donated some prizes, and there was tombolas, raffles, and stuff like that to raise some money. and then we donate all the proceeds to the charity for the old folks home and on the island, and it's things like that. There's always events that we can pull together and have a bit of fun.
Yeah. Who won the match?
Well, unfortunately, it was Lefroy. I think it took the title, but yeah.
If you were to say, well, based on the whiskey, who's the grittiest bunch, that kind of makes some sense.
Yeah, that's
you guys are lovers, not fighters.
That's right. Yeah, that's we were there just to have fun.
It is incredible, and one of the things that I, going into this conversation, I didn't realize is one the scope of how you and Bruichladdich enters the community in many different ways and kind of adds this value, hiring young people. I think this is an important tale. Not just for Islay, but for any place, know. And I just didn't realize how small it was.
Yeah,
truly.
Right, so it's very small, and it means that everything we do has a sense of meaning to the place and the people. And I want to see that like Jim gave me an opportunity when he was, he came to Bruichladdich after working at Bere for 40 years. He knew he had about 10 to 15 years left of his career, and he started that journey with giving me an opportunity and like some other young people an opportunity to come and learn a skill at the distillery. And we've opened that up and we keep doing it. And I want to get to the stage when I'm ready to retire and I'm handing over to the next generation that all still exists and that ethos is still there. So it's something that we're very passionate about, is, going to keep making sure that we retain all the skill and the knowledge we have. We pass it on to the next generation, and Bruichladdich will still be like this in 30, 40, 50 years time, 100 years time.
As the manager, the distillery manager, and having the culture being very, very important to the place, but also the brand itself. Because you're a mentor to these folks, right?
Yeah.
You're a leader. As such, what are some things that you always want to make sure people know about you as a leader? What is, in other words, things that you do to make sure that the culture of not Islay, but Bruichladdich itself remains?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Again, it's something that we just do naturally. I think for us, it's, everything we do has to mean and have a sense of reasoning that why we're doing things. We just don't do things just, because it seemed, or, somebody, it's
not a whiteboard, dark.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. We're doing things, we're very focused on we're doing things for the right reason.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a difficult question to answer.
So as a leader,
yeah.
Here's something people say, right? That have big organizations that they lead. My door is always open.
Yeah.
Right. So are you if for the personal development of your crew?
Yeah.
If they've got questions, if they've got challenges, potentially balancing work life. You're an accessible guy?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we don't really have a hierarchy at the distillery. Everybody, is hands-on, jeans on. We get down and dirty with it. We lead by example, because I've been through the process, and Jim is the same, like there's, we don't ask people to do things we wouldn't be prepared to do ourselves.
Yeah.
We're very open. We like to support our employees. We try and give them the best support that we can. We try and give them, it's not just a job. We're trying to get them invested in the business as well.
Yeah.
When they come, they feel as if they're part of the distillery and part of the success. And I think, we've been doing it for a long, long time now, and it becomes almost like every day, but it is the way we see it as normal, but maybe in other businesses it's not. But we're very much hands-on, open door. Our CEO, he's very approachable. We run alongside the team rather than we're disconnected from the actual guys on the ground. So, and it's always been that way at Bruichladdich. And I think it's a way that we get results because we're more involved with what's happening day to day than being disconnected from it.
So let's talk about the marks for a few minutes here. So I had the pleasure of trying, I think it was a 30 or 32-year-old. There were just a few bottles that made their way into Texas. And this comes from the shuttered era ultimately. And it's just a lovely, lovely spirit even then. I feel like it got a little more romantic and a little more bosomy as it kind of reopens. That's how the new spirit tastes to me.
Yeah.
But you've got this plethora of stuff like Octomore, right?
Yeah.
Super challenging, but a thinking piece. How does that mark specifically? I guess what's 8-1, is that the one? That's
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about that one? Sipping that one with people and kind of challenging them a little bit.
Challenging people at drinking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing with Octomore, I mean, it's when you describe it to people, whether it's about the phenol content, its cask strength, its age. Octomore is generally, other than 8.1, so up until 8.1, everything was 5 years old.
Yeah.
And its cask strength is 60 ppm, and 60% ABV, so 120 proof.
Mm-hmm.
And the phenol content could be 150, 160, 180. So when you describe that, it's almost like it's off. Yeah, it's off-putting. Yeah, but the great thing about it is when you taste it, the discovery of tasting Octomore is it's not all that. It's made in a way, and that's something that we take great care of. And the same with Bruichladdich, with Octomore. When we created them both back when we started distilling Potala in 2001, and Octomore was in 2002. And again, this was led by Jim, that we, having understood that, what the phenol content of was the malted barley, and we mashed it and got the best extraction we could and fermented it as we do with Bruichladdich, the same length of fermentation. In the stills, in the distillation, we, as we were making Bruichladdich, we've got tall, elegant stills. So the stills we use for making Bruichladdich spirit is tall and elegant, and we distill slowly to get that soft and light spirit. Yeah. So when it came to distilling the peated whiskey for the first time, Bruichladdich, we were left with a choice: do we speed up the stills and get a more heavier, robust spirit?
Right, because the heat would actually, because the particulates are actually heavier, right? Is that why
So you've got all these the phenol content in the from the malted barley. You've got that present, which we didn't have in Bruichladdich. So the first time, we had to then work out: do we want a heavy, robust spirit, or do we want a light and elegant spirit? Yeah. Now with phenols, it's difficult. You've got to get the balance. So we could have easily just then said, right, okay, we're going to turn up the heat and it'll distill faster. Therefore, the vapor travels up faster. You get heavier spirit, really strong and smoky. Or we could, slow down the still as we do with Bruichladdich, run it quite gentle. And what that does is it allows the vapor to travel up a lot slower. More copper content, contact,
right.
And that purifies it. But what we're doing is actually sacrificing some of the phenols in that, but it makes the spirit a bit more three-dimensional. Well, we say three-dimensional, but it's more elegant. It's got more flavour of the more of the DNA of the distillery. It's got that malted barley, some of the flavours from fermentation, but it's also got the peat smoke. So it's just a balancing process we do in the distillation by turning it down, and we're getting that lighter spirit through. And that's the discovery point certainly with Octomore, because something that's so high in phenolic content to begin with, and then, it's cask strength, and it's only 5-year-old spirit. I think when you discover it, that you find it's far more balanced than you would expect, right, because we distill it in a way that it's, just marrying up all the flavours between, the grain, the fermentation, the distillate, getting the best out of it we can from the stills, and
that's great. I mean, that's one of those nuggets that I hope people hear.
Yeah,
because you have a choice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, that was
always have a choice.
We have a choice, and that's the thing about us, is that we're distilling, is that the fortunate thing for us when we started Bruichladdich in 2001 was that we had an opportunity to start again. We were starting from scratch. And, creating Potala and creating Octomore was, that was great for us to be able to do that. And it was great to have Jim's knowledge as well, because he, he was thinking logically of, what he wanted to create, rather than just say, right, okay, we're just going to, put all the grain through, we'll get some heavily peated spirit, and we'll see what age is like, and then we'll work out. No, he was actually thinking about the detail of the style of spirit they wanted to create, and I think that's really what's put Port Charlotte and Octomore where they are today. Is that that style of spirit is that thought was back then in 2001 when we created it. And it's slightly different from some of the Islay whiskies. It's not strong. It's a bit more tempered. But that's what we enjoy, and I think some of the flavors that come through and I think that's why Port Charlotte is my kind of go-to whiskey at the moment, is that it's balanced. It's got woody, dry smoke as opposed to that kind of really heavy, oily, medicinal smoke. It's a bit more tempered. It's
nuanced. It's refined.
Yeah, and that magic happens in the stills. That's not from the casks. It's not from anything. It's the still that we've managed to shape that character.
I think maybe I read this with one of the people from your PR team. Is Port Charlotte 10-year a full thing now? Is that going to be around all the time?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So we've been trying to build up. So we made Port Charlotte in 2001 for the very first time. And we didn't really know where or what, how it was going to, where it was going to end up or what we were going to do with it. But we knew we wanted to make a peated Islay single malt. Mm-hmm. And as times went on, back then it was about 30% of our production, and we'd been distilling quite low quantities back in 2001. And as the business matured, we started to increase the amount of distillate we were doing, and year on year. So therefore, the quantity was growing, but we always struggled to get to a point where we had enough to do a kind of global, it became our core. 10-year-old was our core product. Not that we're saying that 10-year-old is it's got to be age driven, but for us it was we were always trying to balance the stocks, and we're using some of the younger stock to get it introduced. So we used we introduced the Port Charlotte Scottish Barley, which was a multi-vintage. It was using 3 different vintages, generally 7, 8, 9-year-old, and that was our main Port Charlotte SKU for a while. But what we've been doing is building up the stocks, and so we're at a stage we reviewed a couple of years ago that if we really want to kind of promote Port Charlotte as an Islay single malt and go into that category and almost compete against Lafroig and Lagavulin and get it, we've got to lead with an age statement. And it's not something that we say wholeheartedly agree on, because we're not saying that age is the most important thing, but it puts us in that category of, it's in par with Lagavulin, or it's in par with Lafroig 10 or Ardbeg 10.
Yeah, absolutely. You're now on the same court.
Yeah, that's right.
Because you guys have been around enough to have this older stock. And so it's more a symbol.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about more, the influences of the grain, where the barley comes from. We still talk about the distillation. We're talking about the casks we use, and it's more than just a number, but it puts us in the same league as the rest of them.
Same league, exactly.
And we're super proud of the Port Charlotte 10. It's just won double gold at San Francisco.
I saw
We're getting great reviews, and it's Port Charlotte is such an adaptable spirit. It works well. It's neat. It's neat. If you take it in a cocktail, it's just such an adaptable.
100 proof too on that one, right?
Yeah, we've got an exciting release coming up in November. We're going to release an 8-year-old cask edition Port Charlotte. It's going to be cask strength.
Oh wow!
It's 59%, I think.
Yeah.
Going to be bottled. It's 8 years old. It's going to be matured in a Mouton Rothschild. Well, it is matured in a Mouton Rothschild cask.
Oh,
it's been finished off in the Mouton Rothschild, so it's a real fruit bomb. It's spicy, lovely balanced dry smoke. It's a special whiskey.
Really
you should look out for that one if you see it coming. We reckon it'll be bottled maybe about November. Yeah. So it's one to come, and each year we're going to do a special cask edition of Port Charlotte, as well as alongside the 10-year-old and the Port Charlotte Islay Barley. So yeah, we're excited about that, and we've got we've reached a point that we've got sufficient stocks that we can play around with it, and that was just a case of us getting to that point, climbing to the top of the hill.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's exciting times, and we've got great things happening with Bruichladdich and Octomore as well. We're working on the next edition of Octomores. They'll be coming out soon. There's lots of great things happening. We've just, with innovation, with some of the Bruichladdich new products, we've just done a limited edition of the Yellow Submarine. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I saw the bottle. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, it was just a bit of fun. I mean, back in, I think, 2005, we had released the first edition of the Yellow Sub, which was, it was just a bit of fun. The story behind it was that the Royal Navy had lost an ROV and off the coast of Islay, and a fisherman had picked it up just off the coast of Islay and took it back to shore, and then it was local news for a while that they'd contacted the Navy, and the Navy were like denying losing this. The Royal Navy, then it was like, £250,000 piece of equipment, and they were like, no, we've not lost it. Anyway, it became a kind of local artifact for a while. People were getting their pictures taken with it, and we decided that at the time, we just, to get a bit of media, we put, because it was in the media, we decided that we'd, do a bottling just to have a bit of fun with it, with the Yellow Submarine. Obviously, the link to the Beatles, and it was just a bit of fun. And that was, just a limited edition, and it was a bit of fun. And then just last year, Adam and I, we were...
They lost another sub.
No. Well, but funny enough, in between all this, that one of the guys that run a guest house just along from the distillery, he had called us up one day and said that he had been looking on eBay, and he found one exactly the same as the one that was lost on eBay. So it was one that had been decommissioned by the Navy. So we bought it on eBay. So we have it at the distillery.
Oh, that's cool.
And 2 years ago we did a bit of fun with it at the festival. We brought it out, so people remembered the story. And then we'd been looking in the warehouses, and we came across the kind of remnant. So basically, when we done the first edition, it was a 14-year-old Bruichladdich that had been matured in Tempranillo casks.
Oh wow.
And we'd taken, I can't remember how many bottles we'd done in the first release, but we still had some of that whiskey in the Tempranillo, the same, but it was now became 25-year-old. So we had decided that it was still sitting there, and we could have used it in another, something with black art or something, but we decided not to do that. We thought we'll do another edition of. So we bottled it all. There was only 1,900 bottles.
Wow.
And we created another edition of Yellow Sub, just a bit of fun. But it's sharing that great liquid as well, that, it's people see the evolution of when it was 14 and now it's 25. And
that's incredible evolution there.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you this when you drink, let's say you're drinking the Port Charlotte 10. What, because I'm just going to make the assumption you like the Beatles.
Yeah. What
record goes best with Port Charlotte 10?
Ooh, that's a good question. What goes with
I think I've got one, but I want to see what you
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I know I've got a few favorite Beatles songs, but I don't know if it connects with the liquid. I'm trying to think. Well, maybe Stand By Me, or
It's for me, Revolver is the perfect
Revolver.
record.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's a thinking record.
Yeah,
it's dark. It's happy.
Yeah.
It's like all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, what was kind of crossing my mind was I'm a big Bruce Springsteen fan as well.
Oh, no kidding.
And I was going to say Fire or something. That really, Fire is, I like that, with like listening to Bruce Springsteen while sitting with a single malt.
Oh, man. And you're in all the way in Islay. That's like the most American thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, I've got 2 questions left for you. And sadly, I've only got my Bruichladdich in the other room, but we don't have any here, which is okay because it's Friday morning. But you're sipping that Port Charlotte 10 anywhere in the world. Perhaps you are on a porch or in your living room or whatnot. But you can have a drink and a sip with anybody, living or deceased. Who would you like to join you as you sip through that beautiful scotch?
Well, if I could turn back time, I'd love to sit with my grandfather, because I never got the chance to obviously sit and have a dram with him. But that would probably be one that I would do. I think we are very fortunate that we still have the ability to sit and drink with Jim. Because again, we've got huge respect for Jim because he taught us everything we know. He still lives next door to me, so he still lives beside the distillery. So we see him from time to time. So it's great just to sit and have a dram with him and reminisce and talk about the whiskies we've got. And he's very still very passionate about everything we do, and he's very supportive of understanding like the challenges and what we're doing. And he likes to come in and get the news, and we like to kind of have a dram with him. So we're quite lucky we've got that. We can still share that experience with him, which is I think because he has been such a mentor for us in many ways. I think that it's great just to basically be able to sit and do that.
That's as you're saying that, I immediately said I've got to go out to Islay. I've got to interview him if they let me do it. A living legend. Yeah, he is. He's a legend, and he would be only too happy to. He's a people's person. He loves spending time with people. Yeah. He's a great ambassador for Islay, for Whisky Industry. He loves spending time with people. He's very, very generous with his time. He loves to educate people about whiskey and and learn about people, and so it's something that I think for him, I've learned a lot from him. And I think, and one thing that he's taught me, and I think it's important, especially in being a distiller, is to make decisions, because there's only so too many people that will sit back and say, I don't want to, make a decision, or I'll put the responsibility on somebody else. And that's something that's always stuck with me, is that in any situation, I'm not frightened to make a decision, because you go with your heart. And it'll always work out. Yeah, and it always works out. And I think somebody's got to take decisions, and that's I think that's a real sign of being a leader as well. If you take the decision, you're absolutely right. And this kind of comes back to that question a moment ago. Well, the last question for you. You were in Dallas last night. You had a great class at 7 Grand here in Austin. Where are you off to next? Yeah, so this evening we're at Whisky X in Austin. Right. Oh, yeah, cool. So we've got a stand at Whisky X, and we'll be there. And then that's my trip done. So I leave Austin tomorrow morning. I'm going via Mount Gay, so I'm going down to Barbados for a few days just to. Poor guy. Yeah, no, it's nice to obviously be able to go down there, see the guys at Mount Gay, spend a bit of time with them. Chill out after a hard week, maybe get some golf in, play a bit of golf. And that's amazing. Yeah, so looking forward to that. But it's been a great trip. We've met some great people across Texas. They're, the passion for whiskies there, the love for single malt, Islay single malts is there. The love for Bruichladdich has been great. And it's always great for us to meet new people, and whether it's people that have never drunk whiskey before, if we can try and introduce them to whiskey, or people that have been drinking it for a lifetime. We love talking to people about whiskey and what we do, and if we can educate them or infuse them by some of our stories, we're only too happy to do so. That's great. Yeah, it's been, and I was going to say it's great to see. There's a lot of people from the States that come to Islay as well, make that pilgrimage across, and that's fantastic to see that people make that journey across. Dedicated, man. Yeah, they're very dedicated, and it's great. I think people see Islay as the mecca of whiskey, and they come there. It's like the Disneyland of. Yeah. It's like coming people come out to Florida to Disneyland. Well, it's there's like a submarine there now. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we'll get Ringo out there. Yeah, and then it'll truly come full absolutely. Circle, I think. Yeah. So it's been brilliant chatting with you. Yeah, and I'll see you this evening too, and I can't wait to sip maybe a few things. Yeah, we'll have a dram tonight. Yeah, for sure. Come along, and we'll let you try some of the new Potala. That'd be great. Yeah. I'm so glad you made the pilgrimage, as you say, to Texas. Yeah, it's a great spot, man. Thanks for having us. It's been awesome. And hopefully we'll see you one day in Islay. You know it. Yeah. Thanks so much. I'll talk soon. Thanks. Well, there we have it. Mr. Allan Logan, the distillery manager for Bruichladdich. I've had the privilege of meeting a few of those gents from that Islay gem just in the past few months, including James the Forger for Botanist Gin, and also interview coming out here shortly with Adam Hannett, the master distiller for Bruichladdich. But Allan is a great guy, very down to earth, very humble, and he loves his whiskey, and damn, do they make a fine scotch at Bruichladdich. Some of my favorite marks in the market today. So, Allan, a belated happy birthday, fellow Aquarian, And it's good to see you doing this great work, and I'm glad to see you guys here in the States also talking about the lovely scotches from Islay. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how many hours you dedicated this weekend to your new video project, or if you are barreling through the 6 to 7 seasons of Game of Thrones on HBO Go, please keep thinking.